I'd also like to acknowledge our farmers in the room. We've got Daryl and Joe here in the front.
Graziers.
Sorry?
Graziers.
Sorry. Cowcockies in the front here. We've got Rob McCrath at the back there, and Graham back down the front. Did I miss any farmer? Any farmers or graziers? Any others?
Sally's here.
Sorry?
Sally's a grazier as well.
Sally, g'day Sally. You're a grazier too, are you? So am I. I just cattle out on Lee McNichol's property. I got in just as the market hit the absolute bottom. I also would like to blame actually Graham and Rob for getting me into all of this. They were at the first meeting that my wife organised in Toowoomba back in early 2010, I think it was. My wife said, "You've got to do something about this," and I'd retired. You know, I didn't want to do anything about it. But anyway, I got into it, and I've been out. I haven't been to Daryl's property. I've been to all the other farms that these people have, and I've got to know them over the last 4 years really well, along with many others. And it's been a real privilege. It's been an honour to have been a part of this campaign, which I see very much as a holding operation, which can lead, like all holding operations can do, to much better things along the way. Because we needed during the mining boom to hold at bay some of the most destructive resource extraction activities on the planet, to keep it away from our best agricultural land and to keep the impacts on underground water and on rural communities to at least bearable levels. And then if, as I hope, in the years ahead that leads to a greater understanding between rural and urban communities, and a greater understanding by all Australians that what we're engaged in here is as a major undertaking to establish sustainable directions for Australia, rather than the unsustainable, destructive and ultimately anti-democratic paths that we're currently engaged in. We're at all levels of government, which are simply going to simplistic and destructive but convenient forces, the mining industry in particular, to search for economic growth rather than to look at right underneath their noses, in some cases, at industries like agriculture, tourism and manufacturing, which have been around for yonks and which do provide far more sustainable directions. Also like to point out that these men have been really important in the campaign that we've had in Queensland so far. Graham, as I say, has been in from day one and bullied me into getting involved in this campaign. And Rob headed the Friends of Felton campaign. And Friends of Felton has been really important because it a brilliant campaign. He and Sally fought out there, the leaders in that campaign, and they showed what I've since found to be absolutely everywhere, that farmers make great environmental campaigners. I don't know what, they've been hiding this skill under a rock for a long time, but now it's out there. And we've just found one after another that are just naturals when it comes to campaigning. They just seem to know what to do. But what I brought to the campaign, I think, as I say, it's been a real privilege to be able to do that, was a sense of strategy. When I first had the meeting with these folk, and then went out west to just look around and see what was happening, it just seemed to me to be very clear that what we were up against was just a force that was far too great for any of us Not everybody is a Joe Hill, but just say go to buggery and you're not coming on. People out west, the farmers, they're self-sufficient. There's not really strong communities as a naturally occurring thing in rural Australia. Farmers are self-sufficient. They don't get together much. They don't rely on other people. They're very polite. They're very conservative, in the best sense of the word, usually, and they love the country. But you don't expect farmers to jump forward at the first provocation and get into a fight. That's not what they're on about. I remember the first, almost the first speech I ever gave, in fact, to a group of farmers was, you've got to stop being so damn polite. Because we're up against the biggest, the most powerful corporations in our society. And so what I said to them was, you've got to get militant and you've got to get together. And both of those things were completely foreign to them. I mean, somebody like Joe or somebody like Rob, naturally did, realise that you had to dig your heels in and fight, but most people didn't. And it wasn't helped by the fact that I was a greenie either, and that it had something to do with the land clearing campaign in a previous decade, because a lot of people were very suspicious of me out there. And of course, when you added to that the fact that I didn't get involved really until about April of 2010, and the first approvals for coal seam gas came through in May of 2010, that was QGC. Then a month later, Santos had their approvals, and then a couple of months later, Origin had theirs. At the same time, we have all these coal mines being approved. In fact, there's never been a coal mine rejected on environmental grounds in Queensland's history until the people at Felton dug their heels in and managed to get the LNP to agree not to go ahead, not to allow that Felton mine to go. There's never been one knocked back on environmental grounds. I actually once said to the Environment Minister, who was a fellow that I used to teach actually at the university, Sterling Hinchliffe, I said that to him, and the idiot said back to me, well, Drew, if they've gone to all the trouble of putting in an application, then surely it must be a good enough project. And I said to him, and I passed you, I can't believe it. But it... What I came to realise though through 2010 was that the best of the environment movement had to meld those qualities with the best of what farmers had to offer. Not the leadership of the environment movement, because they were missing in action. They'd been missing in action for nearly 2 decades. And not the farmers' representatives' body, because they'd been the same. AgForce in particular. In fact, AgForce is part of the problem. AgForce has been colluding. They've been colluding with the government and colluding with the gas companies, ever since the mid-2000s at least, when a number of them got on the payroll. And they're still on the payroll. So what we had to do was bring together those two, the best of those two worlds, those two cultures, which are not sympathetic with each other, go around the representative bodies that existed on both sides, build a whole new movement based on things that both sides had long forgotten, and that is militancy, preparedness to fight, and a preparedness to actually get together with the rest of the community, which is also alien to many people in the country. So what came out of that was a meeting, 5 minutes, okay. Even with a migraine, I'm a gas bag, hey? We had a meeting out in Darling Downs, and I think maybe all of you were there, I can't remember, but back in 2010, late 2010. And the strategy became really clear that the farmers and environmentalists had to get together, but that it was the people on the land who were the most important, because they had to adopt Gandhian techniques of non-cooperation and civil disobedience. The law said they had to sign access agreements with these companies. That was before the companies could come on. That was the point of intervention, because if you refused to sign an access agreement, they were buggered. They could take you to court, and maybe the court would decide in their favour, but maybe it wouldn't. And they've never taken anybody to court. And they know well and truly that they bring Queensland police, they call on Queensland police to come and arrest a farmer at their front gate, standing there with their wife and kids, and the dog and the neighbours. That would be one terror. Yeah, for a foreign multinational mining company to be doing all that, what a bad look. And they haven't been game to do it. Unfortunately, the things got away on us. I started too late. We didn't, there's still a bit of suspicion of me in the early days. We just didn't get enough of that consensus early on to stop those big coal seam gas companies. But there's still a lot of fighting going on out there. There's still a lot of people like Joe and Daryl who are digging their heels in and fighting to the last. But there's also, we've seen the industry, I'm talking about the gas industry now, the coal industry's gone. I mean, their costs now outweigh their profits, well and truly. And look, we're seeing the last of the coal industry worldwide. I mean, it hasn't become obvious yet, but it will over the next decade as renewables come in and they're cheaper, they're better, and they're more popular. But gas, we're seeing gas now at its absolute height. The prices that they've got contracted for are good. They give them that margin that they need, their profit margin. The employment is at its peak because they've had to build their pipelines, build their infrastructure. They've got work camps everywhere. People are making money out in the Surat Basin. However, when the pipeline no longer needs to be built, and when the work camps no longer need to be built, and the other infrastructure no longer needs to be built, all they need are the people to run the drill rigs and a bit of maintenance. So the workforce drops from 100% to 10%. All of a sudden, the economies of those rural communities collapse.
It's already doing that out there, Luke.
It's already started. That's right. It's already started. It will collapse. And a CSIRO study, you've got to watch the CSIRO because their Jazeera study is funded by Origin Energy, which is a coal seam gas company. But anyway, they did a survey recently that said 10% of people out there are totally opposed to coal seam gas, 20% like it, and 70% are unsure, haven't made their mind up yet. Well, believe you me, when a country person says, I haven't made my mind up, not real sure, that they don't like being unequivocal about something. They always like to be as generous as they can. That means they're not at all sure about this, and they're reserving judgment, and they don't like this company. And by the way, the two most common phrases you hear out west when you go around talking to people and they trust you enough to actually talk to you, is they talk about psychological warfare from these companies. That's what they practice, psychological warfare. Actually, the one that you hear more often is lying, thieving bastards. But anyway. And
nearly right.
that 70% is going to swell enormously. And people are going to find out just what it means to live in a gas field, to live in a mining economy. And also those 85 farmers who are already losing their water, they're currently losing their water because they take it out of the Walloon coal measures, they're going to find out how difficult it is to get a make good agreement out of these companies that makes any sense at all. These companies are wanting to push up a dam, you know, for 50 grand or something, instead of drilling down to a lower level into the Huttons or into the precipice aquifers to give these people some water that they've lost, costing up to $1 million each time they do it. They don't want to do it. There's going to be fights galore. That's for 85. Now there's another 550 after that who are going to lose their water. So you start putting a whole lot of new drills down into the Huttons or the precipice to get water. They're already over allocated.
They don't know whether they can get any.
They don't even know whether they can get more. That's right. And yet the Queensland government is giving these companies and the coal companies unlimited access under the Water Reform Act. I don't know what the word reform means now, but it certainly doesn't mean anything good. Whenever I see it next to legislation, I know that's something to look out for. So the Water Reform Bill says they can take as much water as they like. At the same time, we're going to have landowners all over the Surat Basin who can't get water. You can't get water on your property, you walk off your property. Simple as that. Doesn't matter how much money these companies are prepared to give you. I read an article in the Australian yesterday by this idiot called Gottliebson. He's a mainstream economist. He was talking about these fools who are in the anti-gas movement fighting gas. Gas is the saviour of the country, and it's going to save all these farmers because they're going to get $100,000 a year from coal seam gas. Boy, I'd like to meet a few farmers who are getting $100,000 a year from coal seam gas. There's a few of them, and they're poster boys. You know, they're the ones who get up and tell other farmers that they should be signing up to coal seam gas, and that's how they get their $100,000 a year. And by the way, they've got coal seam gas wells all over their properties, and they can't run their properties properly because of it. But what's going to happen out there over the next few years is that farmers generally, landowners generally, are in for a very, very bad time. And they're going to need people from the cities, people generally in Australia, to realise that they have been the collateral damage in a terrible experiment that's been levelled on this country by the fossil fuel industries in the last decade or two of its life. The fossil fuel industries are coming to an end. Before they do, we are going to see, though, massive destruction across our country, and we're going to have to see the development of the biggest social movement that we have ever seen in this country to stop them. Thank you.